Hello everybody and welcome to another show of Transmutations. I'm your host Stone Hobbit and I'm situated in a very little tiny country on this globe. It's like a spot. We're called New Zealand. We're absolutely a fantastic little pinpoint to the centre. And I would like to say, if you want to come in and listen to us, we're a great bunch of crazies. We are on peopleforpeopleradio.ning.com. We take questions partway through, or take questions anytime, okay, anytime. So for me, where I come from is, I came from a very dark situation, and by living a constant in that situation, I didn't know that there was another way. All right, it's like, you know only one way. Those are the rules. Everybody around you does what they are told because these are the rules. If you are going on an overnight stay, these are the rules of engagement. You learn fast because the tortures, the punishment, it's more of a punishment than actually a torture. The torture aspect comes from somebody else because they weren't involved in it in the first place. Yes, it is torture as per se. Certain things should not take place on a human mind, nor should it take place on the human physicality. Both have a memory storage. And for us to be able to find communication and that connection, we have to work together and become that oneness. I'm talking about our soul energy, our conscious state, the state of awareness of what's around us. Now, just recently I lost a hard drive. I had some choppers fly over my house and I lost a hard drive. Now, on this particular hard drive was a lot of new information that I had been downloaded. Now, I came onto the radio station, I started talking about the downloads and the effects and the symptoms that I was having. I'm not afraid to talk about the experiences that I am having because they are real. I have enough evidence and enough people who have been involved in and around when events have taken place. So the stuff, that is a confirmation for myself to know that I've got to keep doing whatever it is I'm doing because I'm getting through it. I'm feeling the energies, I'm reading the energies, I'm reading the information. I can hear the voices. I know I don't 100% know where the voices are coming from, but that's part of it. I'm staying as logical and as honest to myself and all the experiences that I'm having, and I'm questioning those that I'm having them with. Did you feel this at all, or did you, where was your mind at? I've become the research scientist. So when I'm in a group of people who I'm watching the experiences and I'm interacting in the experiences they're going through, it's on a multi-level scale. It's the different dimensions because I've had the dimensional, experiences all my life. I can talk about this. It doesn't matter whether he, she, they, what, it, wherever come from, turn around and say this, this and this, because I'm the one in this scenario right now, and these are my findings from those experiences. Now, I can turn around and say that I've cut myself completely off emotionally, but that I have not. I cannot do that. It is those emotions and knowing myself on those emotional levels that allows me to let myself go that little bit further, deeper into it. And I'm always making sure every time I go to do any form of experiment that I'm asking permission and I'm explaining what it is that I'm looking for at that particular time. So a level of understanding between our communication levels, and I won't go beyond that boundary. If you want to learn and you want to know that information, you have to find a connective source that is also going to do that. And when you are clear with each other, that, the clarity of that intent and you on your honor, and, you want to learn, we want to know more than what we already are. Okay, and this is what we're doing. We're constantly looking at every scenario around us. We're breaking these scenarios down. We're seeing what is right and what is wrong. We know that everything that they are doing to us goes against our free will. Our indigenous rights. We were born here. We are a plant life, just like everything else that is here. We are of this whenua. Whenua is land. Okay, we are part of this energy. This energy is known as land. We, to be here, we breathe the oxygen. It is nobody can take or claim the rights to our oxygens. But we can turn around and say, look, you are really damaging my well-being and my environment and everything around me by spraying these chemicals. We know what you're doing. Now explain yourself to us. Tell us why you are doing this to us. Because if you don't, we're going to find out. And when we do find out, the repercussions aren't going to be pretty. And it's not going to take us having to leave our houses and hunt these guys down. It's not going to take any of that. It's going to take the mental thought, the intent, the knowing. When somebody finds out that they have been hurt or they have had something taken away from them, they go through these different stages. You go through, no, that's not happening to me. And then you go through, okay, well, I can see where I'm being affected here now, this family and these people over here I'm interacting are being affected this way. This is not right. This is not right. Why are you picking on certain people? Why are you doing what you're doing? You know that we are a threat because we are waking up to ourselves. We're waking up to the fact that nobody out there has the right to own any land. But that does not mean that we can't coexist. We have some rules set into place, and we respect that. And through our mana, our honour of who we are and our interactions, we pass peacefully by. And should we want to relocate and stay in that location, there'll always be somebody else who's willing to take on the location that you were at. There's so many areas of barter and trade and skill. We don't need this money system that is there. We all know that we are so entrapped in the system. Now we can see what the system is. There's levels. I work with complex cultural post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I can break that totally down, but I did that in another show. Now, when we go to the cultural aspect of it, where do you come from? Where do you want to come from? Do you have a background? If you don't have a background, what feels right for you? Where you put yourself in a location where the frequency feels right for you, your plants are growing, that you're planting, everything in your environment is, a nice flow energy, so that you want to get up in the morning, you want to participate, you want to see where this experiment takes you. You want to interact with certain frequencies and energy forces. Is it because you are feeding off them or not? When we start breaking down what we are, where we came from, what our connections are to the plants, and the general life, the general consciousness that is made up, and it is this density that we are within. Our eye spectrum, I'm doing a lot of work on retina and reconnection and remembering, and the phonics of the re. Where does the re come from? How does it make you feel? Over this week, I've had the opportunity I'm working with a young person at the moment. Love him to pieces, great, fantastic energy. Just been put into a situation where if he can get through this, there won't be anything that they can throw at him. But it comes down at the end of the day, does he want to actually do it? Can he actually find it within himself to trust a couple of people who have experienced the depths of what they're trying to put this young person and his complete family through? It's absolutely disgusting, the system. But it's also interesting, the different connections you make with people and how you interact with people, what you get. Now, if you've listened to previous shows of mine, you will know that I break down every molecule. I want to understand the workings of who I am and what my environment is. I've come into encounters where I've been put with groups of people that cannot think sanely, that were classed as mental, or had one disorder or another, this label or that. Now, when you sit and you take the time to get past your own fears, your own, I call it Dr. Armour drama. When you go past your own anxieties, these are things that we build up ourselves. When you understand how these anxieties come about, where they come from, you start breaking them down. You start going, okay, I don't need that. To do this, I don't need. We find our focus. Our focus comes down to a small spectrum of what we actually are, what we can actually be, and everything around us in our environment. We splinter ourselves so that we can cope with the energies that are around us. I just would like to welcome a Mutual. Oh, he's just disconnected, so once he returns, I'll get back to that. I've done a lot of work with a couple of people. We're going back into our cultural aspects, our Indigenous rights. Now, you can look at the different skins and tonalities that you are at, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where you come from. It's the environment is important around you because it's our survival. It's, the oxygen that we breathe, the breaking down of the oxygen. Once upon a time, we didn't know what oxygen was or how it functioned with us or our environment. And then we're still learning. They took away this information as soon as we started learning that it was good for us and, we could live a longer life and all of this. They started masking it and giving it different labels and taking it away from us. It's up to us to turn around and reclaim our right, our sovereignty of who we are, where we come from. We don't have all the answers. We can leave our bodies. We can interact with all these other different dimensions that are out there. And at the same time, what work are you actually doing? Are you seeing it for what it is that's happening around you? I'm really at a stage where I'm loving this journey because I am exploring. I'm exploring every opportunity. I recently went to a party and a friend of mine that I've known for a year he's quite a young chap, he's going through a lot of stuff, but there were some really weird things that I saw when my first encounters with him. And when you go into different states of dimensions and you see these telltale signs, and then you're here in the living in the 3D and those signs show themselves and you can't deny it. It's that, I saw that. Why did I see that there? And then now I'm seeing it here. Why am I being guided to this? Why am I doing this? Do I want to be involved in this? It's never ending. There is always something going on. There's, I get twisted and bent out of shape, man, I tell you. It is absolutely insane. But as soon as I feel myself getting to those states, I go, okay, look, take myself out of the picture, analyze the material I've got because I'm now going, information overload. There's nowhere to store it. I can't work as fast as what's coming in. So I have to slow myself down and then I have to put the information in the right locations. It's like, we talk about the shapeshifters and the different abilities people have out there. Well, for me, it's no longer about the labels. It's about the actual abilities that we have and how we operate them. Okay, they can put the labels out there and they can limit those abilities that these labels have. But we know from our experiences, and it doesn't take much to sit down and actually work out where you've come from, what you're doing, what you're drawn to, whether you think you're actually caught up in the system, and then start seeing the reactions, the infections, on my list today. One of the topics that I wanted to talk about was the macro-micro infections of who we are. Are we the virus? Anyway, I would like to just introduce, as he's just come back in, welcome my good friend Tarangi, and he is a lovely chap, and we will have him on our show now that he's all joined up, so you will look forward to that next week and getting back to it. Looking into these experiences now, I've taken on the opportunity with a young friend of mine, and he's allowed me to come in so far, and I've respected that, and I've allowed him to come in so far on the way that we communicate between each other. I listen to him very carefully on the different aspects, the tonalities. It's like, for me, it's no longer about what I'm seeing just generally on the 3D. It is also about the aspects of the involvements. He has a lot of involvements with a lot of traffic that come through. So he's interacting with a lot of energies. And I'm not just talking about him. I'm talking about all the people surrounded him, his family, all the different situations. I've gone through so many different experiences of loss and grief and being, taken hostage, and and having their sovereignty, their rights, and not being able to be, seen as they're not mental. They cannot associate with a certain system that's put in place, because everything in their core being is saying, you are taking from us, you are taking away from us. And we can see this happening, and we can see how the system works, so that makes it so hard for any person to get that freedom back. You have to be incarcerated for a certain amount of time. You get that freedom, and you know what you got to do, but you don't do it. We push those boundaries a little bit each time, and it's like, what outweighs the other? The rights of the land. Yes, we know that that's where we come from. We feel that energy. We want to take care of it. We know the land provides for us when we take care of the land. It's nurture and nature together as one aspect. And to see them turn around, when I say them, I'm actually talking about the people that operate the systems. We know the systems as Admiralty Maritime Law versus Common Law, the law of the land, Indigenous people. All right, we know this stuff. We know about the different ages and stages of slavery, to the point where we recognize we're still being used as slaves on the land that we were born on. We are still digging those ditches to grind that wheat, to grind that crystal, to break it all down. We just cannot see what it is that they have, that they've got us in this position so that we can detach ourselves. A lot of us do know how to do this, but there's not enough of the numbers just at this point. And those that, we are being harassed. We know that with the technologies that our government's allowing to come in, and they're doing it right in front of us. You might get distracted with the Brexit and this person getting kicked out or that person. But at the end of the day, if you can imagine for 5 seconds, I know it's so far, you do not want to believe it. It's your belief system. It's where you put your energy. You put enough energy behind that belief system to make it real. You manifested that belief system. So now for 5 seconds out of that system, I ask you to look around this planet and look at every country and the control system on each of those countries. And now tell me if you can't see some of that control seeping into every aspect of your local township. All right, I'm saying that there is a soft military movement going on. You're not doing anything about it. Are you out there looking at your environmental activity? When those people put up a barrier because, we're doing roadworks over here, you follow the rules and you follow that barrier, because there are certain laws and stuff put in place saying if you cross that barrier, you're endangering other people's lives. Now, what about your life? Something happens at both ends, you're blocked in, you can't get away. Because you didn't take a look at your environment, you didn't look at your surroundings. Where can you go? Where are you going to go? Is there somebody else around you that you need to help? Are you emotionally set to be able to help if a major goes down? I'm looking at all these countries and I'm seeing we've got different drills going on here in New Zealand. And I know New Zealand isn't the only country that are going through these military drills. But while people are distracted over here looking at this thing that's going on, they're not seeing what else is coming in. I picked up the Bible today. Yes, I've got burn marks all over my hands. But I do bibliomancy, and yes, it's the King James, by the way. So, for me, it's like I read between the lines. I see the different dimensions that are going on and taking place in the slavery. Slavery wasn't just about the black people, for fuck's sakes, or excuse me. Women were caught up as slaves. We've been living in an environment for generation after generations being, we only are allowed to have this position or that position, and this is how much you're going to get paid because you're a woman and you don't do the job as well. Well, that's all absolute rubbish. This is the borders, the boundaries they put up, to stop us, to make us believe that our value isn't as important as the next person or the male, or, I'm not gender bashing here. I don't really care what your gender is. Basically, it's about what you're willing to get off your butt, get out there and do and interact. We are capable of so much more, but because we limit ourselves, we do not intake and undertake, and we're not out there. We're not experimenting. So now I'm going to backtrack. When I'm at this little party, now it didn't seem to appear to go according to plan right from when I arrived. I don't know if it was me or not, but anyway. I got to interact with different persons, different vibrations, different frequencies, different mindsets. Some have worked with me in the past and some haven't. Now, I have a certain connection with this young chap, and he has a lot of energy, he has a lot of information, and I feel it, that he could go a long way if he turned around and saw what was being offered to him. And I now class myself as an elder, all right? Now, the information that I got was we have a sort of a telepathic connection. When I say telepathic, I'm not saying that we can read each other's minds. We're building up the information. We are reading the information. We are sharing and teaching each other how to do this. And the next day, we started off, we went into like a staring match. You look into somebody's eyes, how long can you do it for, blah, blah, blah. But there was a certain way we did it. Now, for me personally, and I can only talk for my experience, when I looked into his eyes, I didn't, it's like when I'm looking into the different dimensions, there's several layers. Which layer am I going to go through? I have to go through 1, 2 to get to 3. So what is the fastest way through without stopping for the other information that's coming floating by? So I'll find the energy point, if you want to call it. So we're looking at each other's pupils, and I've been doing work just recently on retina. What's a retina? Retina is in the back of the eye. It gives the information to the brain, but it's also a re-antenna, as far as I'm concerned. Living here with the trees, being the antennas, they've given me a bit of information. So you've got your re-antenna. Right now we're going through stages of remembering. We're putting ourselves back together. The information that is all around us is coming back together. We're being encapsulated, right? So we're getting that information back. How we translate that information, how we use that information, these come in different reactions and symptoms on our physical and our mental. We're able to either slow ourselves down now, and we can do this because we can identify that there are certain areas that have sped up. So as they speed up, I'm going to slow myself down because I'm just going to go with the flow. When I go with the flow, I know when to slow down even further by changing my position, my axis, or go faster or fight it. You get to know when the flow's coming in, you go with that flow. That flow is information. So now I know that by the work I've been doing has been pointing me to the eye, how we see things, how looking into the different dimensions. It's a form of communication. We use it in telepathy. So now going back on track, looking into this young man's eyes, nothing, don't go there, guys. Anyway, I'm looking into his eyes, and I'm looking through the pupil, and I'm seeing myself in a tunnel, and I'm watching I'm watching these little scenarios taking place. If you can imagine, you're in a tunnel and there's like this like smoke sort of screen going around the outside. That's the energy. I'm seeing that as energy going past. Now this young man, obviously trusts me enough. If you know me well enough by now, you know that I'm into nature. I listen to nature. I know nature's alchemy. And just recently, nature told me that now's the time for Amanita muscaria mushrooms. But I'd also done some other natural herb cooking as well. So in the mix of that within, my friend and myself, there was a clarity. When I have a look at alchemy, there are certain plants that will give you clarity, and the way they do this is by balancing out the molecules of vitamins and minerals and putting them into the right places. It's like, I want a piece of chocolate, I put it in my mouth, and all those senses go through me, and I know what I am tasting because I've allowed myself to go without that taste, that sensation, and then just put one in there, and instead of munching it down and it's gone, oh, that was nice. It's more like I put it in there and I suck it. All right, I suck it, I let it dissolve, I taste where it's what it's made up of. Can I identify what is going on around me? So I'm standing inside this young guy's mind. Oh, I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but anyway, imagine a small version of me, standing inside this tunnel, this smoke tunnel, and I'm looking through, and I'm seeing these different scenarios. And it's really quite interesting because these scenarios are also connected to these other strands that are trying to also get in and connect. And I know that by me seeing that happening there, I was able to turn around and see that happening to me on the other side. So there was like 3 or 4 conversations going on within this tunnel between me and this person, and then there were these others that were trying to get in all around us. It was absolutely a ride. It was a buzzy experience, and it showed me that we can say no to a certain area. You don't have permission to go past that. We are in control of that. So by me seeing that, we have a free will. We've been stuck in this slavery system telling us that free will is, you can get up and go to work anytime you want to. You got 9 to 5, get up, go to work. You start realizing that you need to have this apparatus, you need to pay for your power and your phone. When people stop buying appliances and goods and material objects, things like house prices and food go through the roof. They've got to make their markets. When I was younger, one of the things my grandfather was trying to teach me, and my grandfather being, involved in system, was to learn to read the stock market. I got to learn to read the stock market. I choose not to play the stock market because it is all fraud. It is all false. Setting up one organisation over here, getting somebody else over there to claim, okay, well, we're going to buy all our shares from blah, 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 and we're going to bypass over there. That becomes a market, commodity. Looking at us as chattel, seeing the different, okay, when you're working in a kitchen, you get a beast. You got to go, okay, well, I've got X amount of food this week I've got to go through, and I can get this, this, and this from this piece of meat from this end, and I can make bacon, or I can do whatever with that end over there. So you cut it up into different segments, all right? But you're still going to ingest all of that, all of the beast, because it's just in different segments. You're going to put it back together again. This is like everything we're doing. We're looking at, okay, we know they're cutting down our trees, and we know those trees provide X amount of oxygen, which provide X amount of atmosphere for us. We know a lot of our health problems, derive from the lack of oxygen. We are being suffocated and people can't see it. One of the things that I get really frustrated about. Here in New Zealand, we have the Māori culture and we have those that have come into our country. Now, we're at a stage, now I'm basically speaking for myself here, but I feel like this is the same language that everybody's going for. We don't care where you come from at the end of the day. It's the intent that you bring with what you want to get from being here. I was born here. I know that I have ancestral rights here, but I don't look at it as rights to my land. I don't look at it as I have to have a piece of land somewhere to survive. That sounds really lovely, and I know that's all I need for the rest of my life, and I won't take up much space. And then I look at all the amount of cattle that they've brought in and started farming, and how they do their farming, the cattle, the sheep. There was enough room, and there was more life here, more indigenous life here, and it's man that has come in and hunted and slaughtered and taken it away. There is man who has mined everything that we have, thinking we have. Well, we don't. We have a hell of a lot more out there to give. We need to go back to our lands. Nothing has to be owned by anybody. There just has to be the intent behind it. I want to look after this plant. This is the medicine the land has taught me. I will give this medicine to your group of people because your group of people are my group of people. The basics that we want are good air to breathe, good water to drink, and a little bit of shelter. We don't want the wars. We know what we won't want. We know how the system is working and breaks us at every single point. First of all, the cost of living is through the roof. You think about when they came over here to New Zealand and they put the flagpole in the ground and said, this is a trading post, we'll trade with you guys. This is what we offer. Blankets, alcohol, jungle juice and boom boom sticks. What is that? We also know when they came here, and they've done this to every country, every indigenous people. They've come in and they've gone right round the country, going to one area and another hapu, one group of people after another group of people, saying to them, oh, we'll give you this and this and this. Oh, we know those are the people you're talking about, but they don't want this. They want to have a war, but we're offering you this, and then the two groups get together and they fight. So they've already done the work that these people from the outside coming in are trying to achieve. It's all warfare. They take and they put the mast. The mast is the center of the ship. The ship, that's the control of the 7 seas. It's piracy, admiralty, maritime law. When you look at it, if you walk into a courtroom, you're walking onto the dock. Step up here, who are you? You identify yourself, so everything's in capitals. So you're representing the organisation of blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't like the way your organisation is running, so you are the one who's going to be affected by this because you can't control your organisation. We can see how they operate. We can break everything down, and it comes down to what do you want at the end of the day? What do you want from this at the end of the day? You can sit there and you can listen to people until you're blue in the blooming face. And for me, it's about knowing that we all have these amazing traits, these amazing skills, these amazing abilities. We have all gone through the same Stockholm syndrome, mass Stockholm syndrome, believing there were others out there, or other groups and agencies out there designed to take care of our free will. All right? Understand or understand what your free will is. You don't need to understand anything. That just takes you to another level of phonics. When you're understanding something, you've got it by now. Understanding inner standing. I want to stand within the knowledge that's within me. I don't want to be listening to every Tom, Dick and Harry out there telling me this and that. I want to go out there and experiment it for myself. What's stopping me? Look at all the different barriers. You know, you're born. These days you've got people wanting to vaccinate unborn children. They, inside that mother's womb, they have all the, antibiotics that they need. We do not need to go and do that. I know it's already going through the system, through the different chemicals in the water, through the different shampoos people use. A long time ago when the water was really good, you could put like a 5-cent piece of shampoo in your hair or condition and it would cover your entire head. Everything would get washed. You knew when it started to change because you had to use more and more shampoo to get the same effect. 2 things. The water was contaminated and the shampoo had been weakened. But in saying that, these are, we've just now spent 20, 30 years of our lives using different types of chemicals to wash ourselves. What is the commonality within these products and where do they go in our system? How do they turn around and grow? Can they be stable in our system and not actually take on some sort of, cyst or, solidified bump or, we get these weird things or something even worse like a cancerous cell. You go out there and you drink the drinks and everybody tells you they're really good, you should have one. Now, why are you not listening? Why are you not looking at the information? Every day they are bringing out new technologies. We are so aware of the technologies. The one way that I know not to get in trouble with the law is basically I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions. Basically, when they run your number plate, they got everything they need to know. The technologies that our government are bringing into New Zealand, they're already here and have been in place for a number of years. Before I left Auckland and I was living on a ley line and I had a heck of a lot of air traffic and I was also involved and it was just like one thing led me to another. I just happened to be one of these people in the right places for a bit of information. But I'll tell you right now, if you sit down for 5 minutes and think about the experiences that you've had out there, you would have also find that you've been put into places to gather that right bit of information. All right, what you're meant to do with it, how we don't know until the time starts to show itself. And I'm pretty sure everybody's experienced deja vu. Fun times. Anyway, I'm going to move on to something else. All right. Now, with the work that I do, one of the things that I'm capable of doing, I'm basically focusing on learning how to read, reading on a telepathy scale. Now, telepathy for me, if you've listened to me in the past, is not just about the mind connection. You have to get past certain elements of the physical, the 3D density to be able to get into the telepathy state of mind. But as soon as you hear the words or the key factors, the triggers, programming changes, your DNA changes, it has a response to, okay, we are remembering, we are putting the information back together again. So with the telepathy connection, it's about, for me, I only talk about suggestions and stuff and the information that I see around me, the experiments that I do. And if it works for you, well, it works for you. We can get together and have a chat and see what each other's commonalities are, because we do the repetitive patterns. We go through the similar scenarios over and over again. And then we go, okay, well, I've had enough of that. I know what I've got to do to get out of it. So in saying that, going back to where I'm at, okay, where was I? Okay, reading energy. Well, first of all, I start off with, I look at the person, I see what their wellness is about them, I see how they got themselves into the different situations that they have. I'm constantly analysing. I don't know why, and my head doesn't switch off. And welcome to another lovely friend who's just, I don't know how long you've been in the room. It's good to see you here, sweetheart. Anyway, moving back on. The energy is a healing form. The energy is a form of communication. It's a device you can tap into many different areas. So for me, when I'm getting a download, I know the downloads come in because there's certain symptoms. There's certain hearings that I have. You know, one ear will sound like one thing, the other will sound like another. I can sit in a space and actually everything else that was physically happening around me, noise-wise and everything, I can completely shut out and listen to the inner in-between of this frequency, that wave that's going across us. The stuff that I got yesterday, or if I say to you, I took a photo of what I once believed was a vortex. It was absolutely amazing. I've stuck it up on People for People radio in the photo section, and it just looks like, you know, a vortex but now I do not see it just as a vortex. I see it as, if you put it into, I think I put it into negative frame or something, negative light. I went through the different coloured light stages, and now what I see in it is a creature. There is a bird. There is an interdimensional bird right there. You've got the whole head, you've got everything, but I'm not going to go and break it right down. I want you to go and have a look for yourself and see what you see. Because if you want to learn, you want to move forward, you need to do the work yourself. You want to do this work. You want to listen to what the frequencies are around you. It's not always about listening to the words that are being said, the tonality of the word being said. Who is actually saying that word? Sometimes it's just the frequency. It's like with the 5G technologies that they have out there, having a tree is going, and you stand on one side of that tree, that's going to protect you from the 5G coming in. They say they want to cut down all the trees so that the flow will come through nice and smoothly and everybody will be affected. Now I'm looking into the aspect of domes. How will that frequency roll over that dome, or will that frequency, you know, cut through it? I see it as going over the dome. When you're driving a car and they put spoilers on and this sort of thing, it's for aerodynamics. You know, this is the same sort of thing. It's the frequency rollover. If it's more of a natural curve, it's not going to go through the hill. It's going to go up and over the hill. So I'm looking at the dome to see if the dome is a better environment. I already know that it's a better environment for our health and our wellness than the square, you know, than the square block that we call our homes, our apartments, you know. Anyway, getting back on track. Okay. Learning to be able to read one's emotions. Breaking down where the emotion came from. What is the connection that you have to that emotion? You know, is it the ego? Breaking down what ego is and how ego can manipulate your thoughts, can manipulate the different areas that you take. Is it because there's peer pressure involved? You want to get involved with this group of people, you want to do this and this and this. You know, but you know there's that aspect that's saying, hey, that doesn't really go with what I want to do, what I'm actually thinking of, the direction I need to take. And so you start questioning where this ego is, what this ego is. You start having these communications with your ego saying, hey, look, you know, you can't really do that stuff. That's not who I want to be. That's not what I want to be. You know, you can stay around, you can hang around, but as soon as you step in, and I have to confront you as well as the situation that's going on, I'm going to tell you to sit, you know, back off. This is now my situation. You know, I'm looking at who's in control of me. What's in control of me? You know, I see who has been in control of me, and it wasn't me. I look at the different systems that are out there and how they've operated, and they've taken away my rights to do certain things, my abilities to do certain things. But now that I can see it, I can go, okay, well, I can either choose to go back and participate and do this and this and this, or I can fix myself over here and stand strong and know that I stood in my truth. I left that position because I could not deal with that rubbish down there. That is rubbish. I look at the values of our land that we have and what flagpoles mean. And I'm saddened that people out there don't understand what a flagpole is. Breaking it down really quickly, a flagpole is a form of mast. All right, a mast is, a statutory, it's a statute, it's straight, solid. It's not going to move. That, it's stationary. That is also a post. A post is a position that somebody stands in. A post is something you nail into, it bang into the ground so it stays fast, it stays strong and it stays fast. And you can lean against it. It's part of the foundations that we have as an environment. When you put a flag on it, that's representing the country or the continent of trade. Yes, I will trade with this country. What are the objects that you are going to trade? Is there a trade agreement? That takes me back to the control factor. Putting that staple post straight into the ground and calling it a mast, the middle of the ship, the control, the owner of that location, takes it from the sea to the shore. The shore now becoming part of the sea, under the seven seas, under Admiralty law, because it is a post, it is a mast, it's the mast of the ship. Looking at what a post is, being, it can be a fence line, it can be all of this, but it's also a stuck state. It puts you in a stuck state. How can you concentrate? This is your boundary. You can't go too far because you are in a fixed, stuck state. So when you say, okay, well, I see where that pole is now, I don't need to be near that pole. I don't need to be near that trade. I don't need to be stuck in those states that have been put there by somebody else. I choose to move outside of those boundaries, but it doesn't matter where I really go personally. Those posts are what governs this country. We look at it as we are under crown law, and we used to have a thing called common law, law of the land, law of nature, law of being. We don't initially go out there and kill off the people that are coming onto our, they're like, if you're Indigenous and you have no fences and people are crossing the land, you want to say hello, you want to know why they're crossing your land, where have they come from. One thing I was raised with was you never know when the last time somebody had a meal. So you offer them sustenance, you offer them warmth and shelter, and then you offer them on their way. This is what I was taught. So that one day when you happen to be the journeyman, you never know who you're going to come up against. You never know whose door you're going to knock on for that little bit of shelter, for that little bit of warmth, for that little bit of sustenance. We can live on our own. When we're on our own, we go through the different stages. We have to break things down. Can I survive? Yes, I can. Why am I put myself in this position? Well, because I like it. Because I'm learning things from it. I'm learning about myself. With all the clutter that's around, I'm learning about myself by sitting in my own silence. One of the things that I did at this party, and I found quite amusing, was I'm sitting in the corner there and I'm having a drink. I'm just chilling out, and I was one of the first people there, so I got the most comfy spots, as you do. And then everybody started coming up and asking me if I was all right. I was great. I was in an absolute fantastic bliss state, looking around the room, looking at the energies, the other entities that were entertaining themselves. It was very amusing, and there was no issues the whole night. The whole night that I was there was no issues. You know, a couple of times we noticed that there were a couple of people who had been triggered. But being able to identify the triggers pretty much immediately, we were able to turn around and, hey, no, it's not meant that way, calm down. Calm down. We're going to talk about that another time. And that worked. It worked. And it happened twice. And it was from the older generation, being able to see that, you know, it doesn't matter how old you get. It doesn't matter how much work you seem to do on some of these issues. There are always issues that are going to trigger you, you know, a memory response. Like, you know, did you climb a tree when you were young? You know, how many of you climbed a tree when you were young? How many of you jumped in a puddle when you were younger? Now you're sitting at a party and somebody starts talking about jumping in a puddle. Of course, it's going to take you straight back to your memory of jumping in the puddle, or dirt, or mud, or then getting in trouble. You know, it takes us back, and these are the triggers. Now, when somebody triggers something dark, you can either choose to go into that darkness, or you can choose to go, okay, well, I experienced that. I don't need to really go back and delve into it. Or you have the option of, experimenting with yourself. What are your limitations? You know, so that each time these triggers are, provoked, the power becomes less and less of a control. When you start doing that, when you find yourself going through those stages, you also turn around and go, okay, well, I'm going to act this way this time when I see it coming. And you do, your response time picks up. You get faster and faster at being able to recognize and identify the emotions and information coming in. Now, with having major anxieties in different areas, when you have a state that you go through, and when you realize that this is a repetitive pattern, you then look at, you can either go out there and get medication, or you can go to a psychiatrist or whatever, and they'll give you a whole lot of stuff to do. But at the end of the day, it's basically provoking the reaction over and over again. They're not giving you the other part of it. This is my experience. So when I go out there and I hear a trigger word and I see a person reacting to that trigger word, okay, I listen to what the content was, where they picked up on, where their boundary limits stopped, where they had to actually physically stand up and be heard, be counted for. The raise in the volume of voice, the intent, the darkness, the push that comes behind that, and it almost gets to the point of the yell. You identify with it, you see where it's coming from, you know what else is going to come. And it is you can either carry on and see that communication break down and turn into something really ugly, or you can turn around and identify with that person and calm them down. If you're lucky, you're going to get to the right stage and they will sit down, and this is what happened. They both calmed down. They both realized that, okay, this wasn't actually a dig at you. This was actually part of somebody else's conversation. Yes, they were younger and they are less experienced. And because they don't have the boundaries that we have put ourselves into to protect us and keep us safe, that if they don't have those boundaries, they themselves are putting themselves into dangerous areas. But we can still turn around and say, hey, look, that's not the right way to say it. That's not really the correct way to behave. I watched a lot of things go on. There were a lot of areas I could have turned around and stood up and said, that behavior is not really acceptable in this setting. And that's all that would have been needed. But there were a lot of other things going on at that same time. And on a selfish aspect, I wanted to see how far I could push my connection of telepathy. It was really interesting because there were 3 or 4 conversations, there were 3 or 4 different areas I could have gone, but I was able to focus myself to the point of seeing all three of these different areas going on at the same time. When we made our disconnection, it was like, I don't know whether I was breathing through it or not, but I knew that I inhaled. I took a really big inhale and I cleared out. I gave myself a little clearing of energy all around me so that it didn't stick. I have my own little rituals I do, so I don't stick. But anyway, I believe we are coming up to the hour, and I would like to welcome everybody who has come into the room. Great group of people and different topics. So enjoy this quick break, and I will be back in a second. Welcome to the second hour of Transmutations. I'm your host, Stone Hobbit, and I'm all the way stuck in New Zealand. I'm not really stuck. I actually quite like it here. I don't really want to go anywhere else. And we are on P4P Radio, and we can be found at peopleforpeople.ning.com. Great minds, great questions. We're all looking for some form of answers and knowledge. It's something we all have in common. We're all seeking something. We don't know what quite it is we're seeking, but we are all wanting to know more. At an early age, I was told you've got to learn as much as you possibly can while you're young, because when you get to a certain age, you start forgetting and you won't remember anything, and it goes downhill from there. Well, I hit that age, and I really was determined not to be affected like that and became a researchaholic. So I used my own life. I've been trying to write my book for years, but because there was so many different aspects of myself and experiences that I've had, I've never known which way to bloody go. But in saying that, I've gotten onto the radio, and it's working with me. I'm finding my voice. I'm able to speak up. I've lost the fear factors that I created for myself. I don't care who hears me and who doesn't hear me anymore. I stand in my own truth, my honour, my mana, and I speak from the heart. You know, there'll be different times you'll hear me speaking with different forms of emotions. Now, one of the things that I've learned through the time is we are shapeshifters. We can take on any form of energy that we want to portray. If you want to heal yourself, you will heal yourself. It's, you know, your words are healing. If you situate yourself in an area where you're always complaining, you're going to get sick. You're going to get sick because our bodies are of a higher frequency than that. All right, just a moment. There's a question coming in. Stone, can you speak about removing chips or implants or decommissioning them? Well, I can only really tell you, hun, that one of the first experiences I had with the chips was I was getting concussions. I started off getting nosebleeds, and then it led to full-on concussions and blackouts. And the people around me were saying, you know, that I was doing such and such at the time, like jumping on a trampoline and then blacking out. Well, I know for a fact that I did not get on that trampoline, because when I was younger, I did crunch my head against the bar and did black out, so I wasn't going to do that again. So I knew that I hadn't done that. So going back to the chip was put in on the just as the arch of my nose bridge starts to change shape, going around the curvature above my eye, and I found that I ended up being flown out of Marble Bar or Muliala, where I used to live, and they flew me to Port Hedland Hospital. And in there was another person, another Asian kid around the same age as me. I was about, 11, 12 at the time. And they said we were having some sort of surgery. And they removed, and we both had the same thing, because we were both able to see it. And it was pretty freaky to see. It didn't mean anything to me back then. It was just, as far as I was concerned, they took this metal piece out of my nose, nose, bridge, eye area, and they did this other person, and it stopped the nosebleeds, it stopped the concussion, except for I had one major concussion after that, and I still don't know how that took place. I believe that I went into some off-world experience, and that's just what happened. But moving right along, I also have a chip in my knee and can move it around from time to time, and there's also one in my hip, and I've gotten people to grab onto it and yank on it. I've tried to cut it out, I've had it x-rayed, all of this, but there is definitely a chip in there. Now, I thought about having it taken out, having it removed, and this sort of thing, but I sort of feel like it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm not 100% sure what it was that I did that stopped its activation, but it had something to do with when I started doing Furlong Duffer and looking at the energies. I started doing kartas, energy kartas, of clearing stuff throughout my body, and I noticed a change in my wellness, my healthness, and I also noticed that I wasn't getting the aggravation that I was getting from the chip in my side. If there are other ways, I mean, one of the things that I did when I get really sick, I make myself communicate with myself. I become that little vessel, that little cell, and I'm going through my system, investigating how my machinery is operating to see where it is dysfunctional, where it needs the most work the soonest, right? And in doing that, I've seen the chip, I've seen the growth around the chip. I know what it would take for them to remove it. It's not functioning right now. If I can get in there and I can identify that, what the components are, how it's operating, and that I don't need it to operate anymore, I can physically remove it from my own body by pushing it out of my system. Now, I've seen this done. I had a friend who went into the doctors and he had a lump on his hand. And the doctor said, we have to operate. Now, I was in the more so, no, just think about it. And this came from old school, old witches in the family who said, and I don't really call them witches, they're just elders that knew this information. If you don't want it there, ask it politely to move and it'll be gone the next day. And this has happened a couple of times in my life on different subjects. A couple of them were warts. A couple of them looked like they were just growths that were just there. And it was intense. If you really concentrate, and it's about the intent that you put behind it, you can heal yourself. You don't need to be running around to every woman specialist out there unless you want a paper trail, unless you need that type of information so that you cover your tracks. For me these days, I know that there's certain things that are wrong with me and how to heal them, and that's where I'm focusing. I'm working on the food groups that I need, but I have to listen to this vessel so I know the appropriate doses to give this vessel. Eventually, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to end up putting everything that I need into a tiny little capsule once a day, and that's all I need to ingest. Call me crazy if you like, but who knows? I might be famous in a few years. But anyway, going back to it, if you get chipped, okay, this is coming from my off-world experiences. Now, I had a chip in my finger at one stage, and for me it was about identifying who put it there and why they put it there, and then basically saying, you don't have the right to put it there anymore, turn it off, okay, otherwise I'll remove it. The next time I was in that dimension, at that time, I took something from one of these beings. This being was wearing a copper bracelet. Now, those that know me will know about the copper bracelet that was given to me and the reason behind me collecting copper coins before I even realized why I was collecting them. So in doing that, I realized what it was what they were doing to me, and it was like, okay, you want to do that to me without my permission, I'm going to interact without your permission. So I took something, because they were always told not to, the beings that I've interacted in one category, do not wear jewelry, do not wear any of this. But when they are not in that predicament, and they're in their own environment, some of these beings will wear certain elemental materials to stay in connection with other members who are on another journey elsewhere. Oh, I can't believe I shared that, but anyway. In taking this bracelet from this being and having him say what he did, I took it at one stage as, well, I have that bracelet. I've brought back the information and I've drawn it out on a piece of paper. I know exactly where to put the upside down pyramids, which are the pressure points to allow certain forms of communication with certain forms of beings. So in doing that, saying that I knew that information, I turned around and removed the chip that was in my finger. So by standing in my intent and saying, look, you cannot do this to me, eventually someone is going to turn around and say, okay, well, that you don't need that done to you. We can still watch you from this distance. I know that I'm still being watched. I know that I'm interacting on an every single day basis with some form of weirdness. You have to look at it at that. It's like, okay, so what is going to happen today when I open my eyes? Or do I sit back and go, okay, well, what happened to me while I was asleep? But if I'm lying down in bed and I'm looking out and I'm looking up at the stars and watching the heavens move across and everything and change and flicker, well, I know that I can close my eyes because I've got no control over what happens to my physical when I'm going into these states. You know, I'm always thinking about the different safety environments of my mentality and my physicality. I'm always breaking down the different labels and what people are getting from using these labels on other people. You know, they want us in stuck states. They don't want us to come out of our shells, crack out of our shells and evolve into what we once and have always been. You know, I see a lot of these ads about butterflies breaking out of chrysalis now, but when I see that, and I sort of, there's a certain element to that is very sinister. It also takes me back to, you know, I raised monarch butterflies for a little while. I watched their whole gestation, the whole cycle, their whole life cycle. I watched how they communicated. I was able to do that. And I felt bad when there wasn't enough food for them around because the amount that they hatched. So I got out of that side of it, but I took on board the information of the monarch and how the monarch was used in different forms of representation, including the darker side of the representations that I was raised in. And so I'm breaking one level of programming to see another level of programming and go, okay, well, I can see how that operates, where they get their meaning from and how that functions. Then I put it into practical state. I want to know how my body's going to react if I go and use this energy. Before I come onto a show, I go through my own little routine. Now, routine can be called a ritual. It doesn't matter what mindset you're in. I go through this breathing process and get myself, centered, if you want to call it that, so that where I'm at, all the information that's circling around me can come in freely. I've put a funnel in place. A long time ago I needed to, because the information, the downloads that were coming in, and I believe this is to do with the chipping as well. You know, we get different frequencies that come across us. We get different reactions. I've broken out in a rash that was like avian mites. Oh my God, don't go and pick up any bloody pigeons ever, guys, please, I warn you. You just don't do it. It took six weeks to nearly 3 months to completely get rid of the avian mites that I had been stung, bitten, whatever by. Boiling water 3 to 4 times a day within intervals. Don't put any kind of chemicals on it, they do not help. It's just boiling water and breathing. Get through it, you can do it. And I see this with other creatures too. It's different times, and if you build up a tolerance to one area, you're not, are you allowing yourself to read that location? For instance, if somebody goes and eats peanuts as a child, they have peanut butter on everything, peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and jam, whatever you want to call it. And then at a certain stage, one day they start breaking out of a reaction. This is what I call pooling, damming. They've built up X amount of chemicals from that area. It's like when you're washing your hair or you're spraying yourself with that deodorant. These days when I do spray myself, it's from a distance and it's usually onto my fabric. And I have a couple of layers on, so I'm not so concerned about it getting too close to my skin. because I know that my body, my pores will open up and take in those chemicals, and eventually my body will start breaking down or reacting to these chemicals that are embedded in my pores, because you get a certain warmth and your skin opens up. We breathe through our skin. There's not enough research to show us exactly what the skin organ does completely. Now, for me, through my teachings, through my nature teachings, it's taught me that our fingertips are one of the most sensitive regions. We take in a lot of information. Everything we touch, everything we do, our gestures are gestures of movement, of energy. We can control that energy. We can turn that energy into balls of energy. Now, there are so many different aspects to who we are and what we're capable of doing. But where do you want to go with this? What do you want to learn about yourself? Okay, you're out there, you're getting implants. You know where these implants are going. How can you protect yourself against some alien being putting these implants in you? Really, unless you know exactly where it is and can go and get it cut out and removed. Okay, you can turn around and you can nullify it with your own energy. But after a while, if you don't keep replenishing that energy, it's going to break down. For me, some of the experiences that I've had, like when I've tried to use these energies against the one that's in my knee, oh, jeez. Okay, I would find that the more work that I did against having it in my knee, the more cripple I would become. I would be at the stage where I couldn't stand on my knee. I didn't have the control. It would feel like somebody came up from behind me and whacked me behind my knee, and my whole knee just gave way and I just went down. That was the control factor of it. I don't hear too many people talking about the damages and reactions, because it's not just a receiver, okay, it's also a sender. They're sending frequencies, they're sending information. It's like anything. I sort of feel like the age that we're going to come into, where they turn around and say they're going to put an radio frequency device, RFID chip into us. It's like, I've seen where they wanted to do this. When being a blood nurse, being a blood technician, seeing how they wanted to do it, they asked for X amount of people per this organisation that I was involved in. I was just a simple blood nurse that got bored and moved on to becoming a blood technician, got bored, got my hand slapped. I left, because I could see what they're doing, and I couldn't do that. I know that now. If I knew what I know now, I would have probably stayed in there and seen how far I could have gone and the information I could have got, but I'm still happy I left when I did. But we got to see the location inside the hand where they wanted to put this chip. And in doing that, I tested this on myself. I've got scars on both my hands, where if I'm going to do something to somebody else, I will do it to myself first, so that I am aware of the different pain tolerances, the different chemicals that are released in my brain when I'm doing this action. I'm not going to go out there and make somebody else do something that I haven't done myself or worked in those areas. This is how I stand in my truth, my honour, my manner. This is what makes me me. Now, I don't care who comes along and tries to argue it. I have a lot of laughs these days, people. I have to laugh at every situation that comes up. There was a time there where a certain person classed me as a blue gin, and that that I had reptilian traits and teachings and all of this other crazy stuff. And true enough, I did. I don't know what just happened then. The fire alarm just went off. So, Gaz, if you could put a song on so I could... No, it's gone off. Okay, that was really weird. All right, I'm obviously not allowed to talk about that subject. So, moving right along. There's no stove on, there's no element on, except for the computer. I'm sitting here and I'm just talking to you. And I'm telling you seriously, we have some very weird things that happen around here. Now I'm going to try to get back on track. Can anybody remind me what it was I was talking about? I know it's bad, eh? Okay, where was it? Ooh, you little buggers. Oh. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere else. Okay, I'm going to go back into the emotional training, knowing what these emotional trainings are. Whistleblower alert. Yeah, I like that. Okay, emotional training. What is emotional training? Okay, to me, I work in, for a long time I worked in what I label deprogramming. It's no longer a label called deprogramming. It's now a matter of identifying yourself, who you are, what they've done to us, what it was that you've lost, what you can do to improve yourself and your surroundings and your environment. Even if you're stuck in a concrete building at the top and there's no grass around you, you can change your environment. You can add that color element to it. When we're working off the different chakras, as far as I'm concerned, different connections to, it's like this brain will keep me here. This brain creates a certain energy mechanics to keep me here in this 3D dimension. So it allows me to see what I see, it allows me to feel what I feel. But my chakras, each one being individual, takes me to another dimension and it records the information. When I am aware of what's going on all my chakras and they start communicating with each other, I'm intending to levitate. But in doing this, there's these things that we have to break down. Now, all the different impacts that I've been through, I should be a complete basket case. Well, some of you might think I already am. And but I break down the emotions. Where is that feeling state coming from? Why do I feel like reacting the way that I do? What were the foods that I recently ate? Do they intensify the emotional chemicals that I'm producing and reacting to? What will be my skin fallout? What will be my eyesight color? What will the taste in my mouth be? I break it all down. I analyze everything I can because it's an opportunity for me. This is my existence. I want to know me. I want to know who I am. What is the energy and the currents that I stand in? How did it all come about? I don't know how it came about, but I'm here. I live in the now. I live in the experience of everything that's happening around me in the now. I can step out of it at any time. I don't have to get caught up with Dr. Armour. He doesn't function here anymore. But that doesn't mean I don't watch him visit others. And that's a bit of a giggle. So with the emotional training, looking at all the different aspects, the darker side as well as the lighter side, am I getting pleasure by communicating with others? Which areas is it stimulating? Is it intensifying? Now, I had another incident this week where I had a almost unrefusable invitation, and for whatever reasons, I took a step back out of it. And once, there was a part of me that would have jumped straight in and taken full advantage of it. But then I had to look at the programming behind it. Now, is it actually something that I would have done myself, or is it the guidance of others' expectations? I watched the energy that was growing around me through the possibilities of this experimental state, of these experimental stages. And when I go into an action, no matter what the action is, I'm breaking it all down. I want to know how it works. If I make something that tastes a bit yuck, I want to know what it is that's yuck about it and how I can make it better later on. And I'm seeing that it's not just the actual food, it's also the mindset. It's also the colour frequency that's being put off by what they're wearing. You know, if you're wearing a certain colour, are you actually in that density, working in that density, which is also another dimension, as well as you're working here on the 3D dimension. So when I'm out in public, I know that I'm doing a big energy exchange information. I want to be of my higher frequency self with only positive thoughts for those that come into any form of connection with me, because I want them to have that sort of the same, you know, I'm not invading their territories. I have that frequency, my frequency's there. If they walk past me, I'm only sending out goodwill, not ill will, good intent, clarity, so that whatever situations they're in, they see it faster, they can adapt faster, and this sort of thing. You know, we've been looking for leaders. We always want to follow someone. We're always a bit afraid to take that step, take that risk factor, until we realise that we feel safe and comfortable doing something in our knowledge, with the knowledge that we have. That's when we start becoming those leaders for others to follow. Now, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm looking outside, I've got green pastures all around me, I've got the trees, the sky's now blue. It's white on one side, blue on the other side. I can hear the birds and everything chirping around me. I'm feeling that energy source, I'm seeing that environment, I'm feeling everything about it. And at the same time, I also know all these different other jobs that I've got to get done by the rest of the day or the rest of the week, what areas I've got to work on to help other people out. So as I'm seeing all the different areas of distractions, how can I function, how can I manage my time better? You know, I talk about multitasking. A few years ago, I decided to stop using just my right hand. Now, I'm ambidextrous, I have been all my life, but I favour my right hand in public. Yeah, I said in public. I even got to the stage where I started playing with the notion of writing with the pen between my toes. So I can do that too. But when I come down to the multitasking, it's multi-dimensional tasking. So I practice what I do with my right hand, I practice with my left hand. When I'm in a show or I'm listening to a show, or, you know, I will listen to music on the side, preparing myself, the energy flow, it's almost like harvesting an energy so that I can stay on track with the information that I want to put out there. What I'm trying to do on my shows is, my show's called Transmutation. I like to break down every element. Now, and I always say this is basically my disclaimer. What I feel is right for me today may not be right for me tomorrow. I might have learned something else that says otherwise. Now, and if I'm ever wrong, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say, hey, look, I got that wrong. But that's just an area for us to see that we are constantly learning. We are constantly upgrading the information that we're getting. Our security, the basics that I see at the moment for us is, I've seen an increase in martial law coming into smaller countries. I've seen the game of risk that our country, the governance of our countries run us at. Looking into the housing crisis. New Zealand never used to have a housing crisis. Now we have a housing crisis. Now we've watched different countries with poverty, with people sleeping on the streets, and the way the communities are treating these people. These people are the people, they can't take it anymore. They can't fit and function in society. They've been broken down. They just don't want to do this anymore. And so they'll live on the bare minimum. Now, when I was young, I was about 19, I had 3 businesses I was running. I was paying a mortgage off on a home, and I had already lost 2 children, and I was trying to stay stable in a relationship. This was at 19. I was also a published author. I would go out and I would work during the day and making sure I brought the kids with me that I had, making sure they were safe so we could get the job done. Eventually that all broke down, okay, that all fell to bits, and I left the situation. In where I'm at now and looking back at that, that was the best move that I could have ever taken, because it meant my life. It meant the life of those around me, because somebody else had lost the plot. Somebody else's grief factor and everything else had crept in. It was too much for young people to be doing all of that stuff on their own with no guidance, no support, you know. So I got to see the different stages and different levels, you know, from being a young person, and where I'm at now, working with younger people, trying to come into what we call our society. They don't have a clue. They find it very hard, and they make a heck of a lot of mistakes. There is so much more information going through their minds with the distractions, because we've already done the distraction stuff. We can identify a distraction as soon as it shows itself to us. But the younger lot, they don't. They're still learning. They don't know how to read the frequencies coming in, when we already have a better grasp of it. So for us, it's about being able to stay in our calmness and share those frequencies with those generations, so that when the information comes in, the stressful information comes in, they've got better ways of dealing with it. Now, I can't turn around and stand somewhere and say, I can help this person do this and this, unless this person wants that help in the first place. But these are the steps they have to follow. But as soon as they break those, I'm not going to allow myself to stay in that situation anymore, because there has been a clear and defined agreement between the two. Now, it's a hard situation being able to see what the governments are doing to all the smaller regions. We have a new team of police down here. They are upping in a couple of the papers. We don't get the local paper where I'm at now, because I've moved rural. But in the last couple that we have seen, first of all, you have one of our Māori elders being given an award, right? And then on the same page lower down, it talks about the Māori gangs fighting and all of this. Then the following week, it talks about the police wanting to hold a meeting, a gathering, how they can help the younger generation of the township. But they have it in a township where the population is pretty much zero. So nobody can attend, nobody will even see the notice. Oh, it's out in that location. Nobody lives out in that location, so nobody will attend, but they still achieved their meeting. And yet, if they were to do it in the township where the younger people were, they might have actually got an audience, and they might have got questions that they couldn't answer. But they don't do this. They manipulate it, and they manipulate every situation that they can. So if they want to say, yes, they had their meeting and it was funded by X amount of dollars, but nobody turned up to it, well, they can't say they didn't have it in the first place. Now, I've been to meetings where I've been the only one that's turned up, and I've watched the energy, and I've watched the fact that they don't want to talk about it, they just want to go home, they don't want to waste their time. But for me, it's about, okay, I turned up, I put the energy in, I want to know the information, share that information with me. It's my right. Now, the following week, they turned around and they had in the paper, LED lights, 740 something going up in certain location, and they have worked out to be, a money saver. They've saved X amount of dollars by doing this. But what I'm seeing with the LED lights, I'm seeing people are not being able to control their emotions. They are angry, and they are being affected by illness faster, and it has a more profound effect on their complete well-being. The lights themselves create a triangle, which, on a dark night, because we're now in winter again, and they had put these LED lights in the street a year earlier from where I lived. And when they changed them over, I found that driving down the street, I didn't have the clear vision. I didn't have the lighting of the road that used to be there. from the different angles that these lights made. Then they turn around and put these LED lights in as headlights of vehicles, and the numbers of accidents increased in a location. I was hearing our fire alarm, which is our emergency alarm. It sounds like an air raid siren going off, up to 3 times in one day. And these lights don't get switched off. These lights are on most of the day. They have a little device on the top of them which I believe emits certain frequencies into the house, and people sitting closest to it will be affected. We've seen this by the movement of the location of the television in the lounge. We've seen it in, I used to see this flickering in my room, and I looked out the window and I identified it as one of these LED lights was malfunctioning and it was flickering. Now I knew that something would take place because it's an LED light and it has these effects on the brain, and if it's flickering, you're going to get sort of effects like epileptic fits and this sort of thing. The next day I just opened my door and I just left it open. I'm sitting there and I'm having my breakfast, and I'm listening to my neighbourhood, my street that was, in the vicinity of this light flickering the way that it was, and all these people were arguing. So I was seeing, and when that light didn't flicker, because I rang up and complained about the light flickering, they fixed it. Apparently they fixed it. And that calmed down. Now this went on a couple of times, and when the light went out again, I was getting close to moving house, but I was able to still see that repetitive pattern of behaviour, the mentality behind people's aggressions. People throwing things and smashing things and walking down the road, swearing at each other, and that was not the norm for my environment. So now they're turning around and they're putting in the paper that they're introducing these LED lights. Going down the street the other day, they're focusing on the neighbourhood, the street neighbourhood, putting in new street pathways, putting in roundabouts. My township that I am part of has no street lights, people, okay, because you blink and you miss it, all right? But now they're putting in the roundabouts. The roundabouts are to slow the traffic down. We didn't need those roundabouts. They are actually going to cause more havoc where they've been placed than if they weren't there, because people have got to come across a train track and try to turn 2 different ways. It's totally crazy. Anyway, they rather do that than build some sort of alarm system and crossing for children to be able to cross the road. One day I was waiting for traffic and this little kid ran out from behind my vehicle and got hit by a van coming the opposite way across the main road. Of course I jumped out and did what I was needed to do, but anyway, that was a bit freaky, all that. But they're seeing, they put out the distraction so that they can turn around and operate on the lighting system. Now the lighting system turned around and showed me that they've put in new security surveillance cameras, ones that are on full swivel so they can swivel right round. Cameras that are flat, they can, like a box, but they have the 4 corners already covered. There's a new microphone on it which is smaller, but it picks up more detailed information. Now, our government has just signed a contract with the Chinese, allowing for further 5G technologies, including Five Eyes surveillance here in New Zealand. Our Five Eyes surveillance is like what we call the GCSB. There's 2 government agencies of surveillance. One is the Five Eyes, which is sent all around the world, and the other one is meant to be just government security. Now, we've also signed up with they're doing a big hoo-ha over a phone company that has certain technologies in it that will be linked directly to Google and all these other companies. Well, the stupid thing behind it, people, is every cell phone that you have out there has all of these capabilities, and if you look at the small print on your agreements, you have already signed a contract stating that you will allow these companies, third-party companies, to listen in on your microphone at any time they want without you being aware, or using the camera to take photos or turn it on anytime without even the light being switched on, people. This is a tracking device. They can track you and find you wherever. Now, this takes me back to the chipping. We already, as far as I'm concerned, we already have massive chips in us. One of the things that my doctor said to me the last time I saw him, he's gone now. He definitely a target, but that's another story. He said to me, when you pass your exam, I'm going to buy you a pair of running shoes and run for the hills and never come back out. And the next time I went in to see him, he was gone. When I say gone, he has been removed. The whole surgery itself had been closed down, so it was no longer accessible. So now going back to the technologies that we see, we know their advancement takes place at night under the cover of darkness when we're all asleep. We know that there's persons out there that are doing these jobs thinking, they're just earning a living and this is their job title, they don't know any better. These people are starting to suffer from illnesses. Sorry, that's a chopper flying over. Oh geez, it's low too. Just a moment. Alright, getting back to it. In the last couple of weeks since I've been out here on a slightly different matter, I've been working with a couple of families in regards to, let's say, Admiralty law versus authority law, law of the land, sovereignty law, and we're seeing an increase in everything around us. I've had helicopters, I've had planes, I've lost a hard drive with material on it. I'm not the only one. There are people in this environment that are standing up for their rights, their sovereignty rights, and they're seeing the same thing. We're getting buzzed by choppers flying around us regularly. We're not terrorists, we're not domestic terrorists. We're out here, we're sharing the information. We don't like the treatment, we don't agree with the treatment that's taken place. I feel very sorry for the Indigenous peoples who have been brought and don't know any better. They've been fighting for the claim of their right, their lands being paid back to them in a certain amount, but because they take a payoff, they don't realise that they've just completed a contract and they've bought something. So it still goes on. You get to a certain stage where you look at your environment, you look at what people want from you. Everybody wants something from you, and you work out what it is you want to actually, the energy-wise you want to put in. Do you want to keep putting that energy in, or don't you? It's like, if I go and interact with a certain party, do I want to allow myself to be opened up to all that information that that person has got within them and all of this? It's like, no. I now choose who I want my interactions to be with on this 3D level. This is hard work, guys. This is busy. We're so constantly busy with what we're doing and everything around us. And it's hard to stay healthy. Get yourself into a routine. For me, time management is important. I can't get everything done in a day anymore. I know this. So, I have to do what I can. The ones that are most necessity to me in surviving, like, okay, I need to wear this tomorrow. It's damp, it's cold. What do? I go out, chop some firewood, light a fire, dry it out, cook off the actual fireplace itself, so I'm saving electricity and I'm off the radar, The more I do that way, the better it is for my health. But, okay, I'm just going to jump quickly on to some medicine since we're running out of time. Dandelions and plantains. Now, dandelions for me, I did a big research on dandelions years ago, and I love them. I even went around the yard one time and I dug deep and I got the tiny baby roots and I planted them into a big container, and everybody told me that I couldn't plant and grow dandelions in a container. Well, I did. You know, when they say you can't do something, as long as you don't put yourself at risk, yeah, I'd try it out, you know. That popcorn that won't actually grow because it's been dehydrated, well, it grew and it gave me 4 corn on the cob. So, you know, dandelions for me have a lot of medicinal medicines in them. One of the things that the elderly gave me when I was younger was the milk, the ink from the dandelion stem will take away warts. And the root of the dandelion, I like to toast it. When I say toast it, I mean like put it into a fire until it's almost, you know, it starts to burn and it's like charcoal burn on the outside. Then I put it into my mortar and pestle and grind it down. I then drink it. It tastes like coffee, okay? A dirty coffee, but it is nice. I really enjoy it. And I know that it has medicinal properties to it, you know. It's helps in cancer and all of these other areas. It's got vitamins and minerals. It's like the dandelion flower, you know, I'll dry that out and I'll make a dandelion tea. If a weed is only a weed until you have a use for it, you know. Oh, excuse me. And plantains is like a grass. There's 2 types of plantains. You've got the long leaf plantain, which is long and narrow, and then you've got the wide leaf plantain, which is short and sort of rounded. But they're easily identified, and you can pick them when they're young and eat them like that, or another stage, because there's like 3 to 4 stages of being able to forage them. And when you pick them, you can either eat them when they're young, raw. As they get a bit older, they get a bit tougher and a bit more stringy. You can either remove the strings and boil them. Your plantain looks like a weed, but it is actually a very nutritious mineral and plant. I'll have to put up a picture for you later on, Gaz, so you can see what I'm talking about. I also started growing dock in my backyard, and I would chop it right back. Every time it did like 6 to 8 weeks, I would chop it right back, so it was just the stem, and it would give me fresh leaves. And the more I did this, I saw that the main stem got stronger and wider, and the leaf itself got bigger and bigger, to the point where honestly, it felt like I was growing some sort of prehistoric plant, because I had never actually in this lifetime seen a leaf of the dock so big. I mean, it was bigger than my head and my chest, and I could wave it around, and it was fantastic. And I found that because I would use the juice of the dock, I would turn it into a lotion with coconut oil, beeswax, coconut oil, beeswax, almond oil, and the actual dock itself. And I would mix it up, and it would be a lotion. It would be a soothing lotion for skin disorders, eczema, and this sort of dermatitis. Okay, these sort of things. And when your skin starts getting all scaly and stuff, I would use it like that. So little bruises and rashes and that sort of thing, things that your skin needs to be fed. And the dock itself was a medicine. It was a healing property, so that's why I would use that. So anyway, I've got 5 minutes left of the show. If there's anybody out there in Spaceland that would like to jump in and ask a question or have a chat, I'm looking at the chat room right now. There's some fantastic people in there. Hi, everybody. I'll go through your names, but I will surely mess them all up. But anyway, you know that I mean well, and hi everyone. So I don't see any questions coming in. I would love to chat with any of you guys at any stage and time. Come in with questions, share some of the strangeness that you have, the different experiences. I was going to talk a little bit about orbs and some of my recent findings with these orbs, but I'll save that for another show, and I'll put up a few more photos so you can go in and enjoy it. But for those that are just tuning in and stuff, we are Transmutations, and I'm Stone Hobbit. You can find me on Facebook, Happy Hunting. Otherwise, I'm on Skype under Stone Hobbit, and I'm happy to chat whenever I can. But I am busy. I'm all over the show as always, but I'm always willing to sit down and have a conversation, find out what your findings are, see if we've got commonalities between the different experiences. I'm non-judgmental. There's no point in being judgmental. We judge ourselves. We judge ourselves by the actions that we take, how we interact, how we could have made something better. What could we change? If you can't change it, how can you best live with and manage what you have to live with? This sort of thing. So I never charge. I don't charge anybody anything. It's not like that. It's about looking at the commonalities. How can we improve our situations? How can we better each other? Sharing the information. We're all splinter cells of another form of energy, and we all come back together at some stage. I'm not really looking forward to that part, but anyway. But I enjoy interacting with you guys of like mind, different subjects, different crazy subjects. And by the way, just for those who just sort of tried to put me off track, I remember what I was going to talk about. It was about being put into the different categories as a shapeshifter or a blue djinn or a reptilian or something crazy like that. That somebody who thinks they're a mantis believes they have the right to be able to turn around and judge the different characteristics that I have. I now am of the belief system or the understanding that we all have different forms of abilities, and we can achieve anything depending on the frequencies we tune ourselves into. So if you turn around and want to, you class yourself as such a subject, there's no reason why you couldn't turn around and transform into that. But it's a matter of knowing what you're going to get into by doing it in the first place. So be careful what you ask for, because the tendency is to give you exactly what you ask for, even if you can't identify it. So in saying that, please be well, everybody out there. Remember your free will and what it's actually about. Remember your ego. Everything that makes you needs to be encouraged, and only you can encourage yourself at the end of the day. It's nice to hear it from others, but it's even better and it means more when you can identify and acknowledge where you sit with yourself and your day of judgment. The judgment that you do on yourself is more important than the judgment of others out there. So in saying that, everybody, be well, be yourself, enjoy the energies and the information coming in, and let's get together sometime and talk about the commonalities. Let's nut it out. So on saying that, this is People for People Radio. I'm your host, Stone Hobbit, and that's another show of Transmutations. Might see you on Thursday, guys. Cheers.